Hello and welcome to the Old Timer Tavern. It is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which means we are off the clock and onto some D&D. I am Lantern Noir. I stream Dungeons & Dragons 2 to 3 times a week and some other variety games. I've been playing games since I made my first fighter in 1980. And with me...
Graybeard's Tavern. I'm a kind of a variety streamer and a little bit of role play games here and there when I can. I have been playing since 1977. My first character was an elemental because our DM just gave us elementals out of the book and was like, "Those are your characters," because we were kids.
Because rules.
Because rules.
Because rules.
Man, it was the 70s. I mean, sci-fi and fantasy were a lot more entwined back then.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've seen many an argument that Star Wars should not be called science fiction. It should be referred to as space fantasy or space opera.
Space opera! Yes.
And I like the space fantasy because there's a lot. I mean, they have space wizards that used lightning swords. I mean, that's... come on. And we all know that our D&D games at one time or another, somebody wanted to have a lightsaber-like weapon.
Yep, the Vorpal blade was often in games when I was a kid. No, it's not an actual sword. Well, dudes, it's based on Excalibur. No, it's a lightsaber. I remember having that argument dozens of times.
Well, and multiple incarnations of Ravenloft have had the sun sword be a hilt with a blade made of sun, depending on like which brand or which home rule or who did what. There's been lots of efforts to bring that into play. Yeah. So how has the week been for you? It's been a bit since it's been a minute. What kind of interesting gaming's been going on in the Graybeard Tavern?
Ooh, so I kind of suffered like you did. This was a rough week for everything. So I ended up, we didn't have our monthly game, which wasn't scheduled till a couple weeks from now. We didn't have our Thursday game. Wait, am I lying? I'm a big liar. We did have our Thursday game. We don't have Thursday game today this week. So we played Masks on Thursday. The teenage crew finally got together and, kind of figured out who we were, and we ended up fighting a how to put this, a steampunk-ish mechanical avatar of the god Mars. So it could, it had, exactly. This is indoor adventure. So he's like, got the gears turning. Basically, if you think of the Golden Army from Hellboy, it was like one of those, but with this avatar of the god Mars in it, and it was an epic battle. So yeah, that was really my big gaming. My Saturday night crew didn't get together. It was Easter, so I didn't do a morning stream on Easter Sunday because it's what is it? How do they? Hunt plastic eggs full of chocolate day or something is what my girls were calling it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We celebrated Easter very loosely this year because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And the kids had just spent a week up north with their grandparents, and Mrs. Noir actually got called into work twice on Sunday. Right. So she worked in the morning and she worked in the evening. So it was one of those where it's like, we really can't celebrate it much. Although the Easter Bunny leaned a little heavy on the spiritual this year because the Easter Bunny and Santa both leave notes for the kids.
Yeah.
And the little one came down and she missed that there had been a basket left. So she went off and started playing on her laptop in the other room. And when we came down, we had our coffee. Did you see that the Easter Bunny brought stuff? And she charges into the living room. So, oh my gosh. And then it goes quiet. And I walk in there a few moments later and she's sitting there crying.
Oh no.
And she's read the Easter Bunny's note. And the Easter Bunny had said, I've seen that you found joy, and Easter is a time of joy and of celebrating life and all the happiness that we do find. And I know you found happiness this year. And I want you to keep that happiness alive. And she's like, he's just so sweet. And there's like teardrops permanently on that letter now. And I'm like, man, maybe the bunny and I need to sit down and go, dial back the spirituality just a pinch. But yes,
rein it in there, Fuzzy. Rein it in.
Our Easter bunny is a very spiritual sort. He usually leaves scripture in his letter. Santa's a little more like, hey, you were good. Here's some stuff. Thanks for your support. Out. And our Santa picks up toys. Our kids leave new unwrapped toys for Santa to take with him as he goes around. They do their part. They send a toy to other kids, and then they get a toy from him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, it's giving back. Let's see. My gaming was a little bit off this week. Last Wednesday we didn't play Candlekeep, which was a bit of a bummer. But we came back last night and we finished up the first Candlekeep adventure, and it is epic and it is awesome and it is like a perfect. It could be a one shot if you play with experienced players. Playing with new players who are amazing. I love new players because they haven't learned to not be creative. And I'm on my toes all the time because I never want to say no. Like I never want to look at a player and go, nope, you cannot do that. I'm consistent looking at the player going, okay, here's how we can make that work. And for example, the big one was Linarius wanted their monk, Jansen, to do a double shot with their bow. 2 arrows, 2 targets, and pin them both to the wall. I'm like, that'll look awesome in like 5 levels.
Exactly.
Exactly. I assure you, you will be able to do that. But you're not that experienced yet. You're still a little monk. So... But that was, and then the other big one out of the game last night was there's a magic item in it, and I don't think this is a spoiler. I won't say where you find it.
Okay, good.
I won't say where you find it, but it is a flail, the head of which is a large book.
Nice.
And our barbarian librarian was like, and that is mine.
Yeah, exactly. A nice flail, but books hanging there.
A giant book. And the book's title? Martial Weapon Techniques. I'm going to learn you how to fight. Read up, boy.
Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy, they have the Empire Army has fanatics, and so at least one of them has a big thick chain wrapped around a bundle of books, and they use them like flails, and so that's amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a blast. And it was fun, and I'm geeking out for this weekend because I'm really hoping Sunday will be the last one, and then I can sit down with my Sunday group and say, okay, am I going to keep finding stuff for you to do, or are we doing Curse of Strahd?
Yeah.
And we can do it. I think this group it's going to be a little more like I always joke. I wanted HP Lovecraft. I got Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But I'm coming around to it. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens when Venkman meets Strahd.
Yeah. Yeah. So suddenly the bumbling and everything just drops, and they're like, uh-oh.
Oh, I don't expect it at all. I expect it to be all right, let's show this dude how we do crap downtown.
No. Oh, no.
If we're all having fun, there's nothing in the rule book that says you can't have fun.
Yes.
Restoring the light to the domain of dread. But that's where that'll be at. And then I've got some other light gaming I'm doing. I'm loving Arkham Horror Mother's Embrace. I've been playing that on Friday nights.
Nice.
You should check it out. I've watched some of your Griftlands, and I think this might be your speed.
Oh, sweet.
It's
sweet.
Nice.
I am totally like hook, line, and sinker into Star Traders Frontiers right now.
Ooh.
Oh, like way, way bad. Like picked it up and played it almost 60 hours in a week.
What is it?
It's Star Traders Frontiers. Yeah, with an S, I think. And it it is the kind of game it's not pretty, it's not super graphics or whatever, but it is the kind of game I've been looking for. You get to mod up your ship, you got a crew, the crew has skills and traits and things. It can be as complicated or uncomplicated as you want, which is great. I mean, you can dig into it and be like, no, fuel prices are too expensive in that, solar system. I'm not going to go there. I'll go around it in this way and chart plot your courses and, make your economy such. Yeah. Anyway, you can do a billion things with it, or you could like, I'm going here. Oh, space pirate, beat up space pirate, drop off stuff, sell stuff. Good. It really I have looked for this type of game for years, and because there used to be a game called Star Traders, just Star Traders, and it was a lot like this. You would go, and it was like 8-bit pixel on a Commodore kind of thing, and you had a crew and you had a ship and you would mod things up, and then you would get to planets, and then you would send your little rover down, and then you'd be like a 8-bit little bug crawling on the surface of this planet and mining for stuff and things. So anyway, completely hooked on it right now.
Awesome. So things to watch for.
I do not know if it would be a good streaming game. I mean, you could make it a fun streaming game, but the way I've been playing it, it wouldn't be fun, I don't think, to stream.
It's all about your style and how you work with your audience and stuff. Some games are good for that, some are not. Your mileage may vary.
Yes.
So I don't exactly remember at this point what it was that triggered it. It was because I'm on a Facebook group called, I think it's Dungeons and Dads Memes. I think it's something like that. And it's kind of a clearinghouse for funny memes about D&D and generic like D&D advice seeking. It's Dungeons and Dads, D&D Dads. And so there's just a lot of like really fun things that come down the pipe with it. And it's that blend. Like I just peeked now. There's a meme that reads, "Some people say women of a certain age shouldn't wear a crown of femurs made from her vanquished enemies. But really, a woman of any age should wear what makes her feel confident."
That's right.
And it's like, okay. I can go with that. And that's like pretty typical of the memes. And then every once in a while there'll be a player will pop in and say, well, what if I do this? Or should I do that? Or I don't know what to do because this is what my character would do. And it reminded me we've skirted sharing our experiences with that phrase.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's not a bad idea to kind of like sit down, have a drink and go, all right, so there was this one time. And this happened, and I looked at me and goes, but that's what my character would do. And I figured between the two of us, we should have a pretty good collection of the goods and the bads that go with those 7 words.
Yes. It's that's what my character would do, is a tool in the toolbox. And sometimes you need a hammer. And sometimes you need, tweezers, and it's how much you use it, or it's a spice in the spice rack. And sometimes, you're shaking the curry powder in, and sometimes you dash a bit of sage. And so, yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag. It kind of goes with, I have found in my experience, most of the time the players that use that phrase are also the players that switch characters every week. In my experience. So,
well, it's a tough one because if you add the "but" onto the phrase, it sounds like it takes on I didn't want to do this, I feel bound to do this. Which can sometimes be sincere.
Right.
I've been playing this holy paladin all along, and I'm doing this, and suddenly I'm presented with a moral choice, and it is clear the easiest thing for the party is to lie to the king and get us the F out of Dodge.
Yes.
and there ain't no way my paladin is going to do that.
Right.
And so in some cases that's good role playing. And usually
Yeah.
that moment with the king isn't an accident. You've been, the DM knows this is part of the storyline, this is part of the hook. Maybe it's a situation that was fabricated to create this interesting tension, but they kind of know they should be anticipating you're going to stay in character.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes almost like an apology.
Yeah. The thing is in a lot of no in a smattering of systems nowadays, that is, they built that into the mechanics where doing something to hurt yourself or the party will give you, because it creates drama. And so at times, again, when you're like, I want me some coconut curry, and you're hucking the curry in, that makes that phrase like, oh, are they really? The paladin's just going to be like, no, sire, we actually murdered those people. You know what I mean? And chaos erupts, and the whole Ned Stark thing from Game of Thrones. If Ned had just freaking
Done something.
Done
anything.
If he had not just been like, I am honorable and I will just toe the line here, everything will work out. Chop, head gone. So
by the way, if you have not seen Game of Thrones season 1, we are not going to apologize at this point. The fact that Daenerys turns heel is no longer considered a spoiler, and it happens in season 7.
Exactly.
Okay, so just don't.
We'll try to be nice, but at the same time, at this point,
Well, and it's interesting because it loosely ties into a conversation we had last night about character alignments, because Jansen, Lenarius's monk, has on their character sheet chaotic neutral, which me not having done a great job of reading over their character sheets before we started playing didn't catch. And I tend to not like chaotic neutral characters in my games because they often turn into I can do whatever I want and then say, but it's what my character would do. I'm chaotic neutral. And then we actually talked, and it turns out their character is actually more chaotic good because they make choices that make life better for people generally.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if the consequence of your choices is that generally life is better for people, that makes you a good person.
Right.
That means you're probably more chaotic good than chaotic neutral.
Right. If you saw someone beating up a child and you were like, meh, that's more chaotic neutral, because you're not, if you go, that is wrong, and jump in and with your monkey goodness, you're probably at least a decent human being. Or you're lawful neutral and that person was breaking the law, and hence you felt compelled to jump in.
Hey, you're welcome to hanging out with us. That was auto-modded because of a couple of phrases that you used that it saw as together as potentially hostile. I have my my Nightbot cranked up pretty high, just until I get to know everybody. But yeah, and that's, it's weird with alignment, and it gets into the phrase, but it's what my character would do, is almost like saying, I don't have agency over this anymore. I'm not writing this character. Yeah. I'm bound by this character. And I think as a writer, everything that a character chooses to do is part of that character. So if a character makes a choice that's different than a choice they made earlier, that doesn't necessarily mean they're out of character. It just means their character has either evolved or has way more depth than you realized based on the previous decision. So the paladin that's always been honest regardless, who now looks at the king and goes, nope, no idea where the head monk went. We saw Brother Maynard when we left the castle. He was perfectly healthy, and by no means is the mutilated head in our bag his. Okay, maybe he's evolved as a character.
maybe he's looking at the greater good of the situation. You know.
Maybe. There's a lot of rationales for that. Um, and the way things can work out. And which demons are you talking about here? Because I can expound upon that when I get some more clarification. Um, and that's when my wife and I have had multiple conversations. She's made the comment that, you know, you have to stay in character. If there's no obvious reason you would do it, then you're a bad writer. I'm like, I mean, it's a game.
Yeah, well, and that's a difference too, you know, and also it's part of the tone of the game. So, in D&D, we see that you have, you know, you have your biffs, you know, your ideals and faults and flaws and whatnot, and that comes from like Burning Wheel and some of those other game systems where it's a bigger part of the mechanics. Here, it's one of those where, you know, in D&D, everybody always forgets it, or most of the time forgets their flaws and backgrounds and stuff. And also, the DMs almost always forget to give out inspiration. It's one of those where when we used to play at the table, I used to always say, that's on you guys. If somebody does something cool, call it out, because I will forget. I've got 500 things going on. I'm running a universe in my head, you know, and to just stop the universe and go, hey, that was cool. Have a token, you know. And I literally have little gold bricks that I
Mm-hmm.
hand out for inspiration at the table, because they're one, you know, me and props, and two, people forget that they have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they have this little gold chip sitting there, this little gold brick, they're like, ooh, okay, I'm fighting the golem. I'll use this. Thank you. You know.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's a good mechanic to keep encouraging people to think about their characters, like that. 7C has a whole mechanic of you get inspiration tokens or hero points when you screw the party over in character, and it's one that it's a weird mechanic because you don't ever think, oh, I'm going to make things harder for people, because then you're in the, but it's what my character would do, and you say it in a way that's an apology or an acknowledgement that you are kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, screwing the party over, and you're only not really sorry, but you know social convention requires you to say you're sorry. But in that game, it's openly encouraged to
mm,
do things that are like badly timed. The easiest is our duelist has the hubris of star-crossed. He
mm.
gains hero points every time he becomes romantically entangled with the wrong person. And I need to lean on because I feel like that's the easiest. I mean,
Right.
he's a swashbuckling duelist.
Right.
It's not hard to find the wrong person to get entangled with. And he needs to be doing it a lot more because then he can rack up some hero points and then he can draw the scenes out and life gets a little more interesting.
It, uh, yeah, I was in a around the table game with LB. She was DMing, and my character had the flaw sucker. It was like sucker for a pretty face, and so like so like we met this necromancer, and poor my poor character, my poor bard, was all like, wait guys, you know, we could use a necromancer in our organization, you know, and it literally came to blows between the paladin and like me and the halfling, who were, you know, we're like good people, and we were trying to save, because this necromancer appeared to be you know, to be like about the science of it, not the spirituality, you know, the evil of it. She was just doing science. And so we were trying to save her. And the paladin was, this is what my character would do, smite evil. And, you know, we were like, dude. And like I said, it got ugly, but it fits into this conversation so beautifully, because that's what he did. This guy was that's what my character would do. And it caused us problems like a half dozen times.
Well, and there's that becomes that's like the perfect, it's what my character would do. because it's a sincere apology to the players at the table. But this is, my character believes death is the end. You're mucking up death. That makes you bad. Therefore, we have to stop you. Well, I'm just doing it for the science. I don't care why you're doing it. It's still bad.
Right. And meanwhile, I've got the same thing coming from a different, my thing is, well, wait, I'm just being my character trying to save the necromancer because, cute goth woman.
How do you not?
I gotta try. And so, yeah, so it's all that character stuff coming together. That same paladin, again, one time we went in to negotiate with like a gang lord, a crime lord kind of person. He was just like, so do we kill you now or do you tell us what we want? We're like, no, oh God, we're all gonna die, so
well, that was Azteki a couple sessions back. They trapped a necromancer at her father's estate, and they're like, okay, we're gonna smite her. And she's like, no, please don't kill me. I'm just, learning my place in this. I want to get into a gang that's going to respect me. And, I don't know better. And Nebula's character's like, well, she is only like 19 and she's still she is sorting out who she is. And the response was, necromancy is not a phase. Okay? She's not necro-curious because that means something totally different and it doesn't apply.
Does not apply.
We have to smite her. And those were good cases where I think that phrase, but it's what my character would do, work. They work really well. They add agency to the characters.
Yes.
And then,
what's Ear talking about demons?
Oh, we've got to think about demons in the Sunday night game, which I figured, since it's not really on our show topic today, we are going to pin it for around 6 o'clock-ish. When we would do our usual email phase.
Got it. Okay,
which I should check to see if we actually have any emails while we're talking. I don't think we do, but we might.
I will tangent then for a story that I'm sure I'll tell again when we get to alignments.
Okay.
But it fits in here.
Yeah.
I was very tired. Very tired.
I love that opening.
Of the well, I'm chaotic neutral. Of course I'm gonna mutilate people and blah blah blah, and then claim to be the good guy, and just all the murder hobo stuff from early first second edition type stuff.
How much experience do I get for a commoner again?
Exactly. Where's that nunnery? So yeah, and I was just so tired of them doing that, so I was like, when the next game started up, I talked to my friend who was DMing, and I said, okay, I am going to play a chaotic neutral character. And we talked to him, and he was like, okay. I said, I'm going to teach these two guys in particular. I'm going to teach them a lesson. This is a lesson session kind of thing. And it was one of those characters because we were all like 19 or 20 at the time, and so I had a dwarf, and he had the black shield with the Anarchy A, blood red Anarchy A on it, and he would go from, hey, there's goblins in the bar. Everyone, oh, the dwarf sees goblins. Oh God, he's gonna get in a fight. Hey goblins, let me buy you a round. And he'd buy them a round of of beers or whatever, because chaotic neutral, I'm like, whatever random. The guards at the city said, hey, you can't come in here with those weapons. And I'm like, a dwarf never relinquishes his weapons. And they were like, yeah, you do. Nope, not happening. And it became like an ugly fight between my like 4th or 5th level character and the town guard, where town guards are being beat to a pulp, by the gross, because D&D. And anyway, like I said, it was one of those things where it was what my character would do, but it was in the vein of, see how dumb what you guys do all the time to us as DMs. It was my teach him a lesson phase, which I don't know.
That's a hard one to deal with. And Ears, I think, has a measure of it. Their comment is, I think people acting like that don't really care about the world you build. They're just playing, thinking there are no consequences since it's just a game.
Bam.
And it's you hit on something really important to that, is that there are consequences if everyone at the table isn't playing the same game, because the consequence is the lost time for people who wanted to play game A, and you're insisting on playing game B.
Right.
And that mismatch is a consequence. It's going to cause some tension. If everyone wants to play a game where it's like we're all kind of we're a bunch of anti-heroes who do what we want. We don't pay our bar bills unless the girl was cute. We don't take gruff from the guards unless they can overpower us. And the DM doesn't go, okay, fine, this town has a bunch of retired adventurers as the guard, which I'm going to file that away. I need to do that at some point in a game, is have this guy come walking out of the tavern when the guard's getting pummeled. Just so like waddling out, he's got like the dad bod plus, and he's just in like a grubby tunic, and his hair is unkempt and his beard's a little scraggly. There's still bits of bread in it because he doesn't really keep track of things, like full on fat Thor. And then have him start throwing like 8th level fireballs. The retired wizard who's gone completely to seed, and it's like, but I can still do this.
Bigsby's grasping hands.
And then because that's the funny thing is, in a lot of ways DMs have power to give consequence, but I also think, and this is part of what brought it up, they were asking what to do because they had this one player who was constantly sneaking off to cause trouble and then would say, well, it's what my character would do, and they were trying to figure out how to remedy it. And so the first wave of responses were, well, throw a 20th level wizard in the town guard as a retiree, and that'll set him right. And it's like, no, it won't. It'll just piss him off because you set them up to fail.
Right.
Specifically, like, you chose to do this. You gave them a fight they couldn't win as a punishment. That never really changes behavior.
And that's exactly it. It's where you have to fall back on the communication skills, because if you're playing that game, the okay, well, next week the trolls will do the same to you, type thing. It's you have no longer. It is not your game. It is an adversarial situation. You why not play Gloomhaven or something where, Descent, a board game where you can be these powerful characters, but someone is playing a board game against you.
Well, it was interesting too, because we were talking, it was another stream I popped in on, and I disagreed a bit with their assessment about playing as DM versus players. Because they said, well, the DM doesn't have to follow any rules. The DM can just kill you with a pile of rocks. And it's like, but in a certain conceit, a certain style of D&D, the DM is bound by the challenge rating rules. You can't give us more than X deadly encounters per full rest.
Right.
And it's up to us to beat your encounters that are within our CR.
Right.
And that becomes like, there's a whole system of rules. If a group wants to sit down and say, this is the style of D&D we're going to play, and you, Mr. DM, you're as bound by these rules as we are. And more power to you. Just play the game that way and own it.
Well, and the thing too with that is that's why 5th is the way it is, because 3rd and 4th played that much more that way, where X was X, and hence you had to have this, and these would happen so often, and here's the CR chart for I forget what it was in 3.5. I forget what they called it, but the XP thing was like that.
There was a formula.
Yeah, and if you were 10th level and you were fighting kobolds, you got no experience. You could just wade through kobolds all day.
Yeah.
You fight all the kobolds in the kingdom, and
you're not learning anything.
You're not learning a thing.
Nope, that's right. Third edition had that, and then 4th edition had the XP budget. And you could, whatever you threw at it, as long as it added up to a certain number, that was considered a fair encounter. And then, so you could do a bunch of kobolds, or you could do one giant lizard, and they had the same experience total. Therefore, they were considered balanced. I would have loved to have been in the meetings where they figured out like how many XP to attach to these monsters to be balanced.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because shortly after Fifth appeared, they just came out and said the CR system's screwed. it's just totally fudged. So yeah, I don't know. I know we're off topic, but
we're coming back. I got plans. I got plans.
Okay.
I got plans.
That's weird. It's just a different style of play, I guess.
Right, and that gets into like one of my go-to stories. I've brought up before on the show is the year-long campaign where the evil character who was hiding their alignment with a helm of hide alignment gets to the end and kills everybody and goes, "Oh, but I was an evil character." That's what evil does. And in some ways, I think the player intended to say, "Hey, it's all good. I was playing an evil character. It says so on my character sheet. I had equipment to hide it from you, and I did. It's just what my character would do." And it missed the consequence of, well, yeah, but everyone had a lousy time.
Right.
Most of the players walked away going, that was not fun. And at the end of it, you could say, I had to do it. It was on my character sheet. And my counter argument would immediately be, well, how did it get there? This isn't a game where like we all drew cards and we all looked at our little card and went, ooh, it says traitor on it. I guess I'm playing the traitor this game.
Kraken Cylons.
Yeah, or Alien if you're playing BSG Light, also called Dark Moon.
Yep.
Or your screen lights up and it goes imposter. And
exactly.
Yeah, which small derail. My daughter and her friend and my best friend and the wife and the son, we all played it together for an afternoon. And my daughter was an imposter for 6 out of 6 games. She was in tears at the end of it because she was either getting voted out or we were getting the tasks done too fast because she was too timid about whacking people,
slaughtering you.
And she never won a single game either. I felt so. I mean, she was starting to tear up because it's like this isn't any fun. I'm always the imposter. But at the same time, like the D&D table. I mean, you decide what you put on that character sheet. So when you say stuff like, "But it's what my character would do," but why is this what your character would do? You can't say you don't have agency over this. As a player, you set this up.
Yeah. The thing is if the point of your evilness was to kill these people, then why didn't you do it 6 levels ago? When you could have easily, they're together, fireball, done with that. It's one of those things that it's a double-sided weirdness. Like I've always said, the big thing to watch for is evil doesn't mean stupid. Evil, if this character was evil, they would continue to use these party members for their own purposes forever if they could. The only time they would ever get rid of any of them is if they started to get on to they're starting to figure it out. Hey, Dave and I are going to go for a walk. Ooh, we were attacked by displacer beasts and Dave died. He's roasting in the belly of a slore. That's what's happening.
How here. Unfortunate. Completely unforeseeable.
Yep.
And the other really good example, and I hate to spoil the end of a movie, but it's been out long enough that it's worth sharing as I think one of the best ideals of that sense of it's what my character would do. And yes, actually, hold on. Let me save that anecdote. Have you ever had a player wanting to kill another player out of spite?
Yeah,
would you like to field that one first?
No. Do you want to finish what you were saying, or are
we're going to hit the
on?
question now because this is even more on point.
I have had at one point I ran a summer game on campus with our gaming group there was 19 players, and they were in three roughly 8-person groups, and it was Game of Thrones way before Game of Thrones, and they were all against each other. And yeah, and some people couldn't handle the you killed my character type thing. But I know, and I've brought this up before, I had another game where one player was hiring assassins
Mm-hmm.
to kill the other character. I mean, just literally to kill them. And the party was not aware of it at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, you got to remember, we were, teenage boys, and yes, we would just outright. So, every gaming group I played with for about 10 years knew I had had enough of their stupidity when I would say, you see, your vision goes blank for a moment, and you see nothing but white. And anyone who had been in my campaigns long enough would be like, 40 by 40 room. And I would literally, the gods of chaos would be like, no, we're done with this. You are now all transported to a 40 by 40 room of force, of solid white. Duke it out until someone's left, or until you've finished it. And I would literally let the party just destroy each other, because they were teenage boys. And it would start at the table with, oh, my fighter can kill your rogue anytime, not if you don't see me coming, and blah, blah, blah. And the reason it was a 40 by 40 room was that way back in the old days, if anyone tried to cast a fireball, everyone would get hit by the fireball. So
Sadly, they fixed that, because it's
yes.
so easy to have a wizard who has that feat that lets you warp your spell around your party.
Yes,
Which,
the evoker.
the evoker, yeah. That's my Sunday group is waiting for 5th level so that our wizard can start dropping fireballs on herself.
Yep.
And just create this like burst. Basically, it goes from a fireball to a burst of flame. And then they can all stand around her because she can warp it around them. Which, kind of cool, makes me a little sad. But yeah, I also have had players over the years, not very often, because when I think back to the days that I had the players that I'm coming to kill you because I'm mad at you, these were also back in my teenage days. And they were when we were much more likely to turn to inter-party PvP to resolve some other acts. And including well, you got my character killed last session, so I've made up a character who's coming for revenge.
Oh my god, so many times.
Yeah. And you often see that as like groups will have the rule of you have to be 1st level when you come in, even if it's like a 10th level campaign, with well, don't worry, you'll catch up fast. Yeah. Just to kind of put a cap on that, because no 1st level character can go toe to toe with a 10th. Right. They need to at least get to maybe 7th or 8th. Yeah. So you've got some time to kind of, either get yourself killed again so that you go away, or you've at least earned some respect. Maybe you've stopped caring. Yeah. But yeah, that's been a thing, especially with younger players, where they use the game more as a redirection.
Yeah.
Another interesting one: players fight for direction of the story. That actually happens inadvertently with the topic this week. But it's what my character would do. I don't see it very often, because most of the time groups tend to gravitate, by virtue of the social group, into who's going to be kind of in charge of where the party goes.
Yes. I have had it again, college. I had a DM who's like, I love when you're at the table, because I put out the story hook and you figure out a way to go after it, because that's all I have prepared. And if the Yahoo squad doesn't bite and go that direction, we don't have a game. We have 4 idiots rampaging in a town, and with no direction. It is, you're right, it does a lot of times show up in social group, it is really interesting to see how. All right, I don't think listens to our show, so LB only has so much patience, and it's
True
so
that. True that.
fun. It's so fun to be in a game with her, because if the game isn't moving along, at some point she will make it move along, or she will just call out metagame style and be like, guys, let's move along. you know because I have been in games and groups with her where we just, the other four players or whatever are just fine being Daffy Duck and being woohoo, 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 and just, screwing around for 3 hours. And when you're streaming, that can be a lot of fun, but you also need to move things along.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing where that becomes that. I think a lot of ways, staying on our topic, when you have characters who say, but this is what my character, if you don't have anyone who has but it's what my character would do, you get into that situation where everyone kind of looks at each other and goes, well, now what? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? Let's go to the tavern. Maybe something interesting will happen. And then they get to the tavern and you go, okay, players, what happens in the tavern? And they all kind of go, I don't know. Is there anyone there offering jobs? It's like when the upside of, but it's what my character would do, is like, well, you have some direction. Your character has a mission. They are going to go after these things. And it's kind of what has happened somewhat inadvertently with the Sunday game, with HHatOTT's character being a paladin of Ravenkind. Yeah. He was told, here is your oath. You will do these things and that. And he's really grabbed onto it. He's like, my character is here to smite the wicked, protect the innocent, and ensure that death is the end.
Yeah. Well, and two, it goes along with agency and background and story. So, like, I think that both of us are kind of story-driven DMs and players. And so for us, when someone says, if this is what my player would do, most of the time we're like, yeah, what? Like, I cannot wait to hear.
Mm-hmm. It works really well. He's really come into his own for someone who's new to tabletop gaming. I love playing with him. And the fact that he is stuck with conflicts where there is no clear path is really, really neat. As I was saying earlier, there's a movie out there. I'm going to spoil the ending, somewhat of it. Not all the ending, but I'll spoil a little bit. It's called Dorkness 2. No. Gamers 2, The Dorkness Rising.
Yeah.
And a big feature in it is Jo is playing her first D&D game ever.
Mm-hmm.
And she's playing with people who they D&D every Friday night in the back of the game store guys. And it's one of the guys in the group owns the game store.
Yeah.
And so they get to the end of the campaign and all this crazy stuff happens and her character is offered a wish. And everyone's like, oh, wish for. And they're like, you can make yourself a god and you can give yourself a castle and you can give yourself riches and you can make yourself a super powerful warrior. And, they're throwing these ideas at her. And she goes, my wish is for this NPC that accompanied us to be resurrected. And of course everyone screams at her and she goes, but it's what my character would do. And it was like, there's a part of me as a DM that's like starting to weep a little bit, like, that is such a beautiful use of that phrase. You threw away infinite possibilities to save someone you cared about and respected, because it's exactly what you would have done in that, anyone like your character would have done in that moment.
Yes.
And there's stuff that comes as a consequence because it's not technically the end of the movie, and I won't spoil any of that either.
Right. There you go.
So if you haven't seen it, oh my gosh, it is so worth the hour and a half.
Netflix, and sometimes you can catch the whole thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to find. Those folks just do a fabulous job on almost everything I've ever seen them do. Actually, I cannot think of something that they didn't succeed at.
I got you covered there.
He's gonna put it in
I'll
the.
put it in the chat. Gamers 2 Darkness Rising. Gamers 1 is really low budget. It's a little harder to watch.
Well, and literally, they are college kids
Making a movie
making a movie
about D&D. It is clever because it does play with the trope of one of their party members dies, and then they come across another character played by the same actor standing on the side of the road going, I am a wizard looking for an adventuring party. Hello, wizard. We currently do not have a spellcaster. Come join us. And that is the extent of it.
You seem trustworthy. Because the DM says to them, yeah, guys, now remember the last person you met on the road ambushed you, and literally like 2 sentences in, they're like, join us, Oh, dude.
The other thing I
so
loved with Darkness Rising is they play to the trope of the woman at the table reads the book and figures out how to break the system. And granted, you can't make a 3.5 character the way, they broke the rules for 3.5 to let the story work. But the first scene where she's in combat, you're like, I don't think that's legal. But she's quoting rules in their fictional Dungeons and Dragons that are just like, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And the other players are like, I never made an intelligence-based fighter before. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes.
And it's such a brilliant scene and it's early in the movie too, so it's worth going after. But I think about that scene, I'm like, I don't have the visceral negative reaction but it's what my character would do, because I keep hoping that when I hear it, it's a positive thing.
Right.
I'm making life interesting and dramatic and fun. Understand that quite often in games, it's I'm going to screw you all over now, and this is my excuse.
Right. Exactly. And I think that just comes from its use, the history of its use comes from a place of, ha ha ha, fudge you guys. This is what, this is a thing that I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And there's nothing you can do because my character would do it. It comes out of vehemence. Where nowadays, half the time someone says that, the person that is most affected by it is themselves. If they say, well, that's what my character would do, it's usually nowadays coming from oh my God, you would die for this NPC that you guys just met. Well, yeah, they're a child urchin, and I would definitely throw myself headlong into the dragon's maw to save the child.
They have so much life ahead of them.
Exactly, it's what my character would do.
It's the paladin carrying around the necromancer who's been enchanted with near-death sleep to protect her, because, well, she's not necromancing right now. She's still just a 19-year-old kid. I guess we should make sure nothing bad happens to her.
Right.
Dang it. Yeah, it's an interesting phrase, but it ties into that, how much of your character's personality is descriptive or prescriptive.
Right.
How much do you look at your character sheet and go, well, I have to do these things, it says on my character sheet. Yeah. And how much is your character sheet a reflection of the character you've built for yourself, and you are attempting to then translate into a rule set for a game?
Yeah, almost. So here is a great example of what you just said. So almost everyone who's ever played Dragonlance, if you say, oh, I love Dragonlance, I played Tasselhoff Barefoot, they go and almost everyone universally, coming from the old days when, second edition, when those modules came out, almost everyone has that reaction, because the person who saw Tasselhoff went, ooh, I just get to steal from the party all willy-nilly. I have to. It says it on my sheet. And they went about, it became a distraction. It became, a thing where, okay, I go for my potion of healing. No, you don't, because it's not in your bag anymore. I've got it. you know, and it just was. It was one of those things where I never knew that because I played Tasselhoff in our gaming group, and so you know I never did that. That you know it was on the sheet, but it I read it differently. I would do it when they were watching, or I would just have their thing while we were in camp, and then I would give it back to them when they go, you know, that's mine. Well, you weren't using it. Well, where'd you get it? Your pocket. You know.
Oh, then Kender are more likely to say, I either don't remember where I got it, or you must have dropped it.
Dropped it. Yeah, exactly. You know, and but I was always cool about it, and so it was fun and funny, and I believe the way it was written in the novels and the way it was supposed to be played. Now, like I said, though, my character would do it on the sheet. Got to. No, you don't. It's your character.
You can always, the thing, character sheets are never in pen. You can change anything on them as a character grows and evolves. And you see that in all kinds of fictions. The characters who do not change, the characters who do not grow are not the heroes. Ahab never changes.
Right.
He goes down. Sorry if I'm spoiling a book that came out in like 1890.
Exactly.
He goes down trying to kill this whale that he has spent like 5.5 inches of book trying to kill.
Yes.
On the other hand, Ishmael kind of comes around to this not being a healthy set of life choices. and grows and changes.
I want that scene where Ishmael says to Ahab, I don't think these are good life choices. Oh my God, I want to see that now. Oh, that makes me laugh.
But that's the thing. So if your character's like, oh, I wrote down here, we'll always steal from the party, and like that one time you did it, out of many, that almost killed a party member because you were holding their healing potion for them, should be the last time you do it. And maybe you do it because you and the DM have worked out, or you and the player have worked out that it'll be cool and dramatic. But then everyone has to stop and go, okay, are we all cool with the way that went out? Because, like, you know, I was doing it for dramatic effect, but, you know, I don't have to do it again.
Right.
Because that's part of the shtick. And I thought the Kender were fun, partially for their amazing level of innocence about it. The thing about the Kender, and so if anyone had sat down and said, I'm going to be the Kender so I can steal from the party all the time, it's like, then you don't get the Kender.
Right.
They don't steal from people because they know stealing is wrong.
Yeah.
They're just amazingly curious and pathologically innocent.
Yes.
Because I think it was in the rules, if you cast Detect Truth on a Kender and said, where did you find that? They will tell you they picked it up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what, it's what my character would do. What they were hiding behind is that exact statement, you know, was, nope, no, you detect, you know, you zone of truth me. I did just pick it up.
But that so misses the point of it. Because they know it's wrong to steal. They just can't do anything about it. They just naturally do it because they're curious and they're clever, and there's such an interesting concept. I had one friend who pointed out that there's no way Kender would survive anywhere off Kryn,
right? Because
of the fact that they're like vermin, and they would be slaughtered anywhere else,
right?
I disagree.
Well, and I've always had a problem with the so the stout halflings having the saving throws, having advantage on saving throws versus fear. That kind of comes from the Kender time of, well, they're just too curious to be afraid. and I'm like, oh my God, that's an evolutionary step that allows an entire species to not prosper.
The necromancer could be flaying Tasselhoff limb by limb. He would consider it a learning experience.
Yes.
Which I'm pretty sure was in the book somewhere. So there's just, I mean, the phrase is one that it's weird because half the time we hear it, we're ecstatic, and half the time we hear it, we're panicked. And which half we're in is usually tied to how well we know the player. Because I think we've been kind of bringing them up a lot, but LB is a good example of a player we both know, we've played with a lot.
Yeah.
And if they ever said, but it's what my character would do, dimes to dollars, it's because it's fun for the party, not maliciously.
Yep.
And on the flip side, people that you don't know, someone who just pops into your Discord and says, "Can I play in your game on Tuesday night?" It's like, well, sure, we have an open seat. You don't really know them that well yet.
Yep.
Which is one of the reasons I love it when people like hang around in both Discord and in the streams, because I can kind of feel them out and go, okay, this person's got kind of like a vibe I can jive with.
There's someone I can connect to, and there's a level of communication, because again, communication.
And don't be afraid to have a session 1/2, which is like a session 0, where you say, we're not in session 2 yet. We need to talk about what happened in session 1 because something weird happened. Let's deal with that weird so that we can all agree that we either keep doing it because it was fun or we stop doing it because it wasn't.
Yeah. And this is late 80s, early 90s. I started calling the after session therapy. I literally would be like, all right, therapy, time for therapy. And we would hash through stuff and try to work out all those kinks and stuff that again would cause me to go 40 by 40 room, just beat each other up for a while, because it's obvious that you guys are just going to sit there and poke each other all night anyway. We used to have a oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna tell this. We used to have a thing we called combat. Okay, so because we're all like guys, and so someone would get an empty 2-liter, boom boom boom, and someone would get hit in the head with it, boom.
Yep.
Boom, boom. So we started calling it counting coup, like Native American tribes that's how they would fight and settle things without having to murder each other. They would count coup. Well, combat became a thing where there would be times where it would just be like, no, settle, you idiots are being dumb, go settle this by combat, and they'd each get a couple of 2-liters and bonk 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 bonk.
Until one person said, you got me enough, you win.
Yeah, I'm done.
That's fair.
Oh my god,
I like that. Combat.
Yep.
That is I'm gonna have to work that in somewhere. That is a dad level pun that needs to be repeated.
Coup.
So we're rounding out the hour.
Oh, okay.
So let's talk emails / viewer questions not related to our topic.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up the demons that are part of my Candlecape game.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening, and this is one of those, I forget that when you let players make characters, you really need to read them. Because it wasn't till the end of session 0 that Linares was relating their character's backstory and talked about how they were haunted and constantly followed by this dark presence. And I kind of did a, what? And I look, oh yeah, yep, they did take the haunted background, which also one person in my Sunday game has the haunted background, and I've never touched it. I get it.
I love it so.
Well, I'm already in a dark world, and there's already enough bad stuff going on, and I'm like, I don't even want to do the energy to come up with another layer of bad.
Yeah.
That one's the haunted background is a DM active background.
Huh. Interesting. We'll talk. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what ends up happening is it's one where there's that constant dark presence that follows them. So the DM has to be part of that dark presence to remind them that it's there. If they're not actively including it themselves and going, ooh, this is a good spot for my demons to do something, the DM has to do it. Whereas, like, say you take a soldier background, the most the DM has to do is go, and so what regiment were you with again? Okay, cool, and we're done.
Hey, you see, members of your old regiment over at the table to the side.
Yeah, you can use it from time to time, but it's not as ever present. And so in the case of Jansen,
Yeah.
I decided to run with it. And when I discovered that they had also taken a relatively high-powered magic item, I was like, we need to make some tweaks here. This is really high for a first-level character.
Yeah.
We added the demons as an element that is keeping the bow from working. Jansen
neat.
doesn't have enough of a connection to the magic in the bow because of the fact that they are haunted by these demons that are interfering. And I even went a step further where if they activate the blinding ability built into it, they also have to make a wisdom save or take 1d4 psych damage.
Oh, sweet.
As there's like a backlash from the demons going, no, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Which has been a lot of fun. I like this one now that I caught it going in, I feel a little like I can handle it. The one my Sunday game I didn't catch until like a session and a half in. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this at this point.
Right.
I got enough plot points to deal with. I'll come back to this at a later time.
Well, and two, that's also where, like, every time I've taken the haunted background, I love it. I've got 3 characters, I think, that are with it. I always put it on myself because, again, like you're saying, that's another layer that the DM shouldn't have to deal with. And so I played in Curse of Strahd. I played a character named Stetchen, who had the haunted background, but he was a knowledge cleric and so on and so forth. And he would just be like at times to no one, stop it. You are bothering me. Yes, she is very pretty. We will talk to her more, and I'm talking to no one. You just the empty air. And it became a nice bit that I could bounce off of as, this character and not put anything on the DM to figure out or be with. But yet it was there. And when the DM would play with it, that was always, the total kudos, like big cookies to them for, playing along.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a whole layer of elements that I've never used. I'll have to mess with these. now that I've actually looked at the thing all the way through, I'm like, wait a minute, I can give them a gothic trinket?
Ooh.
I need to be doing this because I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay. Anyway, yeah, the other thing I noticed, if you want to talk about pro tips for things not to do when you're running a game.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that our bard hadn't taken any of their spells. So we end our first session with a battle against a chair mimic. And the rogue, bless her soul, this was the thought process. I can stab it, but it's wood, and I am a fire genasi, so I will punch it with a flaming hand.
Yeah.
Good series of thoughts. It's a mimic, so it gets an automatic grapple check when it's touched. Yep. So she goes down, and that's what we defeated the mimic, and that was the end of the session.
Oh.
And yes, Ember is an amazing rogue thief, very much on the chaotic scale, somewhere between chaotic neutral and chaotic good, because she will literally take anything not tied down. Like every room, is there something there I can take? Is there anything of value there? And it's almost pathological.
Guys, I need a bag of holding. I really, really need a bag of holding.
But then so this next session started, and I'm like, well, just cast Cure Light Wounds on her. Like, this isn't going to be hard. You're just going to cast. And they're all like, okay, can we roll medicine? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I look, and the bard has no spells on her sheet.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. And then I was like, I got so lucky that I was able to come up with this on the spot, because I one time I'm like, crap, we have to stop. We have to finish her character sheet. And instead, I rolled with it on the night, and for the entire night, if there was a situation where she started to say, I'm angry or I want to do a thing, I'm like, looks like you just learned another bard spell.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Nice.
Sing, and that's how the scene went down. The demons were convincing Jansen that her friend had died. She'd let her friend die.
Mm.
You know, they had failed their friend. Their friend was going to die. The best you can do is sing them into the afterlife.
Yeah.
And that bled over into the bard, who started singing, and that then activated the magic, which was the Cure Light Wound spell.
Nice. Nice. I had a buddy in this would have been 3.5 who said, okay, I'm gonna be a sorcerer, but I'm I'm young and I was just chased from my village and I only know one spell. And I want my other spells to show up X-Men style. You
Ah,
know, like powers come to me and then I'll put that and that'll be my next spell. You
cool.
know. And so it was a lot of fun to just play along, and then he would say, you know, something like the first there was a ghoul coming at him and he's like, no, and I'm like, well, do you want to, you know, is it like a gust of wind, or, you know, is it frost, or what it comes from your no? And he would say whatever, and then we would decide, well, what about burning hands? Does that sound right? I mean, fire erupts from your fingertips. And that's just the way, like, he ended up with expeditious retreat because they were in a sewer and something scared him and he was like, I'm out. You know.
Yep.
So yeah, it was fun to play that way.
It is cool, and it's one that it's a weird balancing act, because on the one hand, they're always going to have the spell they need for that moment, but then there's a cap
Yes.
where it's like, okay, this is, you've kind of discovered this is your skill set. It might not be as universal as you had hoped it would be. So let's see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Which presents some really good opportunities. So yeah, that was that kind of stuff. If you have players that are open to it, and it goes with, like, again, with when I was saying earlier, with younger, newer players, younger in game terms, they tend to be much more, I want to try.
Right.
And I love that side of things, because then it becomes, well, you can probably get that effect if you do these things.
Right.
And sometimes it's an inconsequential narration, and sometimes it's like, it's a little lower powered maneuver. That's like a feat level thing. Remember, you're still a young hero.
Yeah.
You'll grow into that.
It is okay as a DM to occasionally say no instead of yes and. Sometimes it's no but.
No, but you can do this. And you can dream of the day you can do that. Or you could attempt to do that, and you kind of have to acknowledge you're not there yet, and it's not probably going to go pretty.
Yeah. So one of our big jokes from ages past is the whole identify thing. In second edition, you know, you would walk around for weeks with a thing and you wouldn't know the go word for a wand, or you'd get a ring and you wouldn't know what the ring did. And and so there would be sessions where the players would just do nothing but experiment with magic. So they're like, my favorite one, and I still say this to this day, was, well, I put the ring on and I stick my head in a bucket and try to breathe to see if it was a ring of water breathing. And I'm like, you take 4 points of drowning damage. No, you can't breathe when you do the bucket. Or I throw myself into the air and try to fly, you know.
Good.
Oh God! I mean, that stuff was so much fun back then. But nowadays, but that was back when you would play for 8 or 10 hours.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have a universe that's all, hey, you wouldn't be connected to your cell phone, you know. And I hate to say it that way, but it really is. Life has gotten busy. Life's just gotten busy.
Well, we got
and
older.
So even the kids who play nowadays, there are not many of them who play more than like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
you know. And so it's just, there's just too much going on. As a matter of fact, it was really funny because I played with younger people, and when we got to like the 4 hour mark, they just started to spin out. They just wasn't. And I don't mean it in they were younger. I meant they just weren't used to 12-hour sessions.
Yeah.
So there was the engagement level was just started to wane after like 4 hours, and I don't blame them. That's a lot of energy
Well,
to
and
put in.
when you look at like a con, and
Mm-hmm.
people plan like 8-hour games at a convention, they're
Mm-hmm.
usually in 2-hour chunks spread out over 4 days.
Right.
We're going to do 2 hours Thursday, 2 hours Friday, and then we're going to do 2 2-hour sessions on Saturday, one first thing in the morning, and then we're gonna bring it home with an epic finale at 8 o'clock Saturday night.
Right.
Which,
Right.
I mean, I took Ravenloft and I turned it into a con event, so I can run it in a 4-hour sitting.
Oh, nice.
And I'm thinking more and more that for like UConn, which is going to be in November, and I believe everything should be normal enough, we can actually have an in-person convention in November.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
I mean, it'll be an in-person convention, but I'll still have my laptop, and you're going to have to stand near half the table, and we don't touch each other.
Right.
But I'll slide your character sheet over to you, or you can just open it on D&D Beyond, because it's free for you. I pay for it. I probably shouldn't try to do a 4-hour marathon. I should just do 2 2 hours and spread them out a little bit, so you have that set, like we're going to go for 2 hours, and then we're going to take a break. And then it gives me time to sit down and go, okay, they did not get as far as they were supposed to.
Always.
So I'm going to cut this out
Yep.
in order to make sure we get to the end of the adventure before the end of our time.
Yeah.
And that one, I'm still bitter. And I don't know if I told you this when I ran it. Year before last, so UConn 2019, I had 6 seats. I had one person buy a seat, and I had a group of 5 buy the rest of the seats.
Yeah.
And the 5 of them didn't show up.
You did tell us that. Yeah. Yep.
So I'm so glad it still went off, though, because it was a ton of fun. And it's neat to do it in that format. I'm looking forward to doing it long form, but there's another part. It's like, you know what I should do? I should find a Saturday where I can just do it on a stream for like 6 hours.
Right.
The abridged version, just for those that want to have that. They don't want to do the full 4-course meal. They just want to kind of like do a drive-through version of it. Because Ravenloft drive-through is still a 4-hour event.
Yes. I will say that I can't do more than 3-4 hours nowadays. It just isn't. I don't know. It's not like. So one of our big stories is we were playing, and again, this was in 1989. We were sitting around playing, and it got to be, we looked over at the clock like, oh, what time is it? Oh, it's 11. Okay. All right. We'll wrap this up. We'll just play, by midnight we'll be done. Let's just finish this up. 4:20 a.m. was the next time someone looked at a clock and went, oh my God, it's almost 4:30 in the morning. It just, that's the way it would work back then, It'd just be no one had a clock sitting in palm's reach. Nobody, everybody was like into what was happening, and nobody, looked away. There was a clock over on the table, but nobody even looked at it.
No, you had other stuff going.
We were having so much fun that we just went with it. So
that's the 3 a.m. playing Rainbow Six Siege terrorist hunt.
Yes.
We could beat them on easy. No, we could beat them on normal. We couldn't beat them on hard. So we fell into the, okay, we beat them on normal. Let's kick it up to hard, get a win, and call it a night. Get crushed. Yeah. We can't end on that. No, let's go back to normal and make sure we can still do this. We need a win. We crush them on normal. You know what? We totally crushed them. I think we've got this. Let's do another hard. And we ping-ponged hard and normal until like 3 in the morning. And I'm like, I have to work in 4 hours
exactly
with teenagers who will notice I am sleep deprived.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Oh, gosh. Okay. On that note, speaking of times, what's the next time we're going to see you doing something fun?
Uh, let's see. It'll be this Sunday morning. Sunday. Um, we are wrapping up the middle character. I can't foresee us not finishing the Rook storyline on my show on my channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're gonna finish up that storyline. We got one character left, and when we finish that other character, we've got to pick a new game. So here in a couple weeks, it's gonna be something new, and we will. The only way I generally finish games is if I'm playing them on Sunday mornings. So come watch an entire series of whatever. Check out my YouTube channel if you want to watch a whole series of pretty much anything, because that's how I do. And yeah, that's it for me until we meet again Tuesday.
Yes, indeed. Cool. And, before I talk about where I'm going to be, if you want to add anything to the show, you are always welcome to join us for a live taping. Generally, they are Tuesdays around 5 p.m., so happy hour in Eastern Time, right here on twitch.tv/Lantern Noir. You can also email feedback to oldtimertavern@gmail.com. And we both get a chance to read that email address, and we welcome feedback. We welcome questions in the chat that we can talk about in the last part of the show. And we love interacting with people. We're two old storytellers that have found a new medium to tell stories on. And this medium requires a lot less dice rolling.
Yes.
We just talk. So I'm next going to be up tomorrow night. I'm going to be playing some more of the Mother's Embrace for Arkham Horror and kind of grinding a little bit on that. I want to get some Outriders time in, so I'll probably play some of that with my variety streams this weekend. And then Sunday night, we're going to wrap up the Mists of Ever Twilight. And I get to ask the players out of game, where does the ship go? Are you leaving the mists, or are you going deeper? And that will determine what happens with the campaign. Hopefully. They might not get there. Who knows? It's a sandbox phase, so we'll see what happens. And that's going to be my usual evening streams start around 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thursday nights are usually my night off, and I looked. They're the only night off I have now.
Oh,
I have content scheduled every day of the week except Thursdays, and Tuesdays we're done by dinner. But between the two D&D games, the variety gaming, and our Monday mysteries, I've become almost a full timer.
I was there for several years. This is the first year that I've backed off of the gaming. So
yep.
I will be back at some point.
Yep. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you for downloading. Thank you for the listen. And if you have enjoyed the show, please, if you're using iTunes, leave a review. Let us know what you liked and what you didn't like. Help other people find this podcast. If you're watching us live on Twitch, thank you for coming by and hanging out. Especially a shout out to Ear and Tear, who's been a big part of our chat today. And we always welcome audience participation. For those other podcasts, we're going to wrap it up on that particular note. Thank you for coming by. Grabe, any final parting thoughts to those listening on their devices?
Yeah, grab a stool, grab a beverage, and come hang out with us, because we love y'all.
Indeed we do. Until next time, please stay safe.